go to tunnel 5.
Hello. All that was not true. Remember we talked about people lying? But no, for real. We go way back to the beginning, so it's an honor to be back up here with all of you guys. And I do still pray for you guys. I do still pray for current students, past students, and my heart has never left student ministry. So, let's just dive right into it. By show of hands, who in this room was shoulder tapped to become a velocity leader? As in, you didn't go get the card and fill it out and see, velocity students, that's the one I want to do. By show of hands, who was like recruited, asked? Yeah, all right, all right. Why? Popcorn out me some answers. Why did you say yes? Gotta talk louder. Why did you say yes? Okay. Nice, nice. Jess, I saw you raise your hand. Why did you say yes? Okay, very good. Yes, you do. You're in my lesson later, by the way, so I'm just going to pick on you all the time. Okay, by show of hands, then it should be everybody else. You were like, okay, I want to volunteer. You picked up the card and you circled students. Everybody else, show of hands. That was everybody else in this room? Yes? Okay, why did you say yes? Why did you see that card and say, students, that's what I want to do? Somebody? Yes.
Growing up, I didn't have. Well, I grew up in an era of Dunkum and Chunkum. There was no discipleship,
Okay.
and so I've always felt that there needed to be some kind of teaching and more than just having fun and games on a Wednesday night.
Yeah, good. One more. Why did you say yes?
I would say for me, it was I have kids myself, and I'm supposed to lead them, most importantly, but also to be involved with the church, like be a leader within the church as well, so that they can see that.
Yeah, that's good. Well, we should all have our why, and that why should be big enough to stir and spur us along when the fun of student ministry runs dry, because that happens really, really fast. So if you guys don't mind, can I share with you my why really fast? Yeah? Cool. It'll help kind of explain who I am. All right, when I was 10, we were going to a church, and let's just say that something really terrible happened with the beloved youth pastor and my 16-year-old sister. And the youth pastor resigned. And me being 10, all of the students in there, this was their beloved youth pastor. So we were mercilessly bullied, picked on, told that it was my sister's fault that they lost their beloved youth pastor. She was 16, so it was not her fault. But that, in my 10-year-old little understanding of who God was at the time and what church was like, and that was my experience with the church, I said, nope, I'm out. I want no part of this. If this is who Christians say they are and people that say they love Jesus, this is how they treat people, no thanks, I'm out. So I just completely closed off and said, it's not for me. So fast forward to now I'm 13 in high school. Another sister, my second oldest sister, started attending a youth group at a different church. And one time she was babysitting us. It happened to be the night of this youth group. She's like, I'm going, you're coming with me. And I was like, nope, that ain't happening. And she's like, well, it's pretty sure it's illegal for me to leave you at home. So you're coming with me. And I'm like, okay, I'm sitting in the car. She's like, that's also illegal. So you're going to come inside. So I remember at 13, I crossed my arms and I'm like fully expectant to walk in there, be a wallflower, hide at the back, put in my headphones, whatever, not pay attention, leave the same way that I came in. But God. And there was like a sermon, the classic, there was worship, there was a sermon, some guy got up, talked, didn't listen to a word, and I was ready to leave. And this woman, she comes up to me and she's like, hey, I saw you all night from across the room. What's your name? And I was like, lady, I don't really want to talk to you, but my mama raised me right, so I'll be respectful. And I said, I'm Caroline. And then she began to weep. And I was like, are you okay? What did I do? I don't know what's going on. And she was like, God had me see you all night, Caroline. And he sees you. And that was it. And then she, went into all the, what grade are you in? How did you get to be here? But she had tears in her eyes. And so I was like, okay, that's kind of weird, whatever. And we left. But something changed in me, in my heart. And the Lord began to stir something and speak to me because of this woman's tears. And I thought, kept just going in my mind, like, she said she saw me. And I'm one of 5, so I didn't really feel seen very often. I was the shy, chill, not the oldest, not the youngest, not the only boy. But she saw me, and she came, and she was bold, and she wept, and I was like, I don't understand. Why would she do that? So I was like, all right, I'll go one time. One time I'll go to her group because she happened to be my grade leader. So I went, coincidence, right? So I went, and that was it. She took me in. She had real relationship with me. For the very first time, I experienced and saw and witnessed and caught what burden felt like. She didn't have to do those things, but she wept for me. She had burden for me. She wasn't there just because it was fun and she liked hanging out with students, but she was there because she truly had that burden. So fast forward later on, and God says, hey, you, students. And I was like, me. And I just wept. And I was like, okay, I can do this because the burden, I had experienced it. I had a front row seat. It had been imparted to me. I knew what it felt like. I knew what it was. And I knew that it was my responsibility that the Lord is choosing me to now have that experience with other students. So, long story, I jumped in with Chris, and student ministry it was. But if you are not leading from a place of burden, then can I real talk with you guys? You're not going to make it. And real talk again, your students are not going to make it. The daggers to the heart, the time commitment, the neediness, the brokenness of students, and just life in general is going to come into play, and it's going to take you out. It just will. So sure, yeah, you can be a great volunteer and you can have your heart in the right place. And like I said, you can love students and love hanging out with students. But if it is not from that real place of burden, again, it's just something is going to take you out. And leaders who lead from a real place of burden are going to see true transformation happen because they'll stick with it, like I said, when the fun wears off. So if you want to take these students through to the end, then we've got to be more than just volunteers. We truly have to have burden. So what does real burden look like, and how can we keep that ignited? Because it's hard sometimes. You can start off like, I'm on fire, I've got this burden, but it can quickly be doused out by a lot of different things. So one thing, find and write down your why. My why looked a lot different than this. Before I ever came on staff with Gateway, It was plastered in my room, where it was the first thing that I saw when I woke up, and it was the last thing I saw when I went to bed. So oddly enough, it was on my ceiling. But it was filled of students' names, their pictures, notes, prayers. I mean, it was a whole collage, it was a whole mess of things, but it just said my why on it. And it ended up being at the desk in my office once upon a time here. But if you can have that in your face constantly, it will help fuel that fire and keep you focused on the mission when the emotions try to take over. So I truly encourage you to find, it doesn't have to be massive, but put it in front of your face. Put their faces in front of your face. Cry, number two. Well, number one, find and write down your why. Number two, cry for them. If you're not crying at least once a week over a student, then you need to seriously pray for more burden. I would set a timer on my phone and attach a student's name to it, and it would go off every single day. And even if it was 30 seconds, 60 seconds, 2 minutes, I would spend every single day, a timer would go off on my phone crying over a student. The reality is that kids are dying at an alarming rate. Like, we cannot afford to not have burden, and they cannot afford for us to not have burden. And I see that picture of Jesus, he's carrying his cross and he's got it over his shoulder, and he's like, Jessica, Sarah, Ed, his why. It's in the forefront of his face. Your names. He's speaking your names, and he's speaking the students' names. So you should be speaking your students' names. You should be weeping over them, because the Lord says, take up my cross and follow me. We are to take that cross with him and those names with him. If we are not burdened enough to do that, I'm sorry, but find somewhere else to minister. There's other places in the church, but this is real. This is lives. This is eternities. This is legacies. This is real. Cry for your students. Set a timer. Pray for them. Remind yourself. And if you are not crying over them once a week, get on your knees and cry before the Lord and ask for more burden. 3, you must have, and the Lord just keeps like putting this in front of my face, we must have fearless joy and fearless hope. If you don't have those, ask. So if you want to see your students through graduation and beyond with burden, you'll also need fearless joy and fearless hope in who the Lord is, because it'll carry you through those really hard heartbreaks. And the kids are going to break your heart. And if they don't break your heart, then again, you don't have burden. Because what happens is we're going to get our heart broken and we're going to be like, I don't want to do that again because it really hurt. And God, I gave him everything, and I gave him my heart, and I gave him my time, and I gave him my love, and they just squished it. And they will do it. If anybody, yes, already had that happen? Oh yeah. Okay. If you do not have fearless joy, then you're going to quit, because you have to have fearless hope that God is not done with their story. You have to have fearless joy that, okay, God, they squished it. Patch me up quick and tag me back in. I'm going in. I have so much fearless joy in who you are and who you say that they are, and that you are not done with them. Tag me back in. I can do this. I got this. I'm going in because I know who you are. And I have that hope and I have that joy. And it is fearless. Because fear is the fastest thing that's going to douse out burden. So we have to have fearless hope in who God is and that fearless joy. 4, it's really, but not really. be bold. You hear it all the time. It's like the first thing you hear when you become a leader, be bold. But if my leader hadn't have walked up to me and she didn't have that courage to come and weep before a girl she had never met before, never seen before, if she had let that fear douse out that boldness that she had, then I don't know where I would be. Because she was bold enough, and she's like, I'm sure, because I mean, I'm there too. All the things are running through your head of, well, what if she thinks I'm crazy? Which I did. What if she thinks, what if she's like, whoa, hey, like, don't talk to me. What if I never see her again? All the what ifs start to come into your mind. But you have to have the mission always outweigh the emotion. The mission should always outweigh the emotion. And so be bold, choose boldness, walk in that. Say, Lord, you still do prayer time before velocity, right? In your prayer time, say, Lord, let me see somebody tonight. Give me a word for someone tonight, and then do it. Go up. I remember one student, and I'll probably cry because I love this kid. One student, same thing. And it was a boy, and so I know we have rules about boys and girls ministering to each other. But it was a young man, and I had said, Lord, let me see somebody differently tonight. And there's a boy, and he's just Mr. Cool, Mr. Everything Cool. But you can see, like, that's just a facade because he's just barely making it through, right? So I go up to him, and I'm like, crying, and he looked at me exactly how I looked at my leader when I was 13. He was like, bro, you okay? Yes. I have something to tell you. And so I just spoke life into this young man, and it kindled kind of a mother-son relationship that we had. And that boy, Keyshawn, one night he came in and he took his necklace off, which I'd never seen him be without. He took his necklace off and he handed it to me and he said, this is the only possession that I care about and I want you to have it. And I was like, bro, are you okay? And I could see him because I knew him at that point. I knew him. I knew that this boy was going to commit suicide. And so we called his parents. We sat outside for a long time, really long. It felt like hours. I know it wasn't that, for his mom to get there, and he's just like, I'm done. But he saw our burden to sit out there with him and weep with him and cry and fight for him. And he didn't. He had struggles. He struggled. But he graduated high school last year. And I took that necklace, put it in a card, mailed it to him, and I said, thank you for letting me hold on to this. I have prayed for you every single day because that is what burden is. I haven't been here, I didn't get to see him through, but I prayed for that young man every single day. His cross hung up in front of my face every single day. I prayed for that man. That is burden. When you don't get to reap anything at the end, you don't get to see it at the end, but you have that real burden. They don't leave your mind and they don't leave your heart. Like, you fight for them, which leads me into be authentic. This is 5. Be authentic. Don't be cool. Like, we come in here and we're like, man, we got to have the swag. They got to think we're cool or they're not going to like us. And we got to dress the certain way. We got to be like, all the new lingo, which half the time I'd have to Google and be like, I have no idea what these kids are saying to me because they're talking in acronyms and I don't know what they mean. But I'm like, yeah. But be authentic because they will read through that so fast. They don't need another cool friend. They have plenty of cool friends. So with burden becomes really, really hard conversations. They don't need another cool friend that's going to be like, oh man, dang, that stinks, but pray for you. They need someone that's going to be like, son, I know you don't want to hear this, but you were wrong. You were wrong. And that comes from a place of burden. And if you are authentic with them, then they are going to be okay with you speaking to them like that instead of just the cool friend. And they're going to get offended if they just view you as that cool friend. So burden will always speak truth in love and have those really hard conversations. But it starts with you being authentic with who they are. It makes me, I have one more story for you. Another student, another young man. All my girls were good, man. Katie, you guys are easy. Not. They made me cry so much. I thought a couple more of them would be in here today, and I was going to really pick on them, but they're not, so we'll just write that out. Another student, his name is Ben. Ben, we all are like, this is a troubled boy. And like, I got all these other kids. I've got all these other students that I want to love and pour on. He's old enough. He should know better, the me things in my brain. And at camp, I was at the front and I'm like just praying for the students and praying. I'm like, Lord, just break him, just slap him upside the head. Like, we want his soul, like just break him. And he's like, how about I break you first? How about I break you and that's what's going to break him? And I was like, excuse me, what? And he goes, you need to go find that young man and you need to apologize to him. And I was like, excuse me, what? He's like, yep, I'm going to break you. I want you to be humble. I want you to have burden enough that you are going to be humble enough to go and be authentic with this young man and say, hey, I messed up. I messed up. I had prejudged you in my mind. I had given up when God said, I haven't given up on him. Why did you give up on him? How dare you? I clearly remember that in my brain. The Lord say, how dare you? I didn't give up on him. And so I took that boy and I took that boy outside and I cried and I cried. And I said, I am so sorry. I love you, and the Lord loves you, and he has not given up on you, and he has so much for you. How can I help? What would help? What do you need? what can we do? And he wept, and the look of shock on his face, I'll never forget it. And I don't know how much that moved him, but it really, really moved me. And every now and again, I'll get a random text from him. But, I'll never forget that. The Lord's like, how about I break you, and then I'll break him because of your brokenness. So be authentic and be humble, be humble, be humble. Don't ever think that I am the leader, they are under me, they're the student. You lead from that place of humility, and they'll follow you with that. They will trust you with that. And then lastly, he already talked about it, but I can't not say it. If you're not close with Jesus, you'll never have his burden. And it's just as simple as that. So you must, and I repeat, you must abide in him. And it seems really crazy to say that in a room full of leaders, but ministry can get in the way a lot. So you have to read to feed yourself, not just read to feed others. And then the one thing that I do have to say with that, and I was just praying, Lord, what would you really have me say with this specifically? Because they know it. They know they need to be intentional with their time with the Lord. And that was, how many of you have ever had someone come up to you and they're like, Colin, I got this thing, I've got this problem, I've got this thing going on, and it's just like word vomit, and they're just like, blah, 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 and you're like, whoa, hey, okay. And they even say things like, I know you know how to fix it, but then they keep talking, right? I really feel like that's what a lot of us do most of the time to God, is we come to him and it's just word vomit. and we ask him, like, speak to me, but we keep talking. And then we turn on worship music and we're praying and we're worshiping, but we're still talking. And we're not there quiet, listening. Because how can you hear him if you don't stop talking long enough to listen? And so I challenge you, that is my challenge with this, is to find time and sit in absolute quietness. Is that a word? That's a word, right? No journal, no worship music, no praying, except for, Lord, quiet my mind, let me hear your voice. And so we take every thought captive, right? What does that actually mean, take every thought captive? What does that mean? Yes, you take them captive and then you get rid of them. Okay? So you catch those thoughts because they're going to come in and your mind's going to start spiraling again. And it takes it's hard. It is a very hard discipline to catch your thoughts and null them. But catch your thoughts. Take every thought captive, as in don't have any, long enough that you can listen to the Lord and actually hear his voice. So, in conclusion, I am so thankful that all of you guys are here. I know that you have burden. I know that you wouldn't be here on a Saturday early in the morning if you didn't have burden, but we can always have more. We can always fight for more. We can always cry more. So, get your why in front of your faces. Have fearless joy and hope as you walk side by side with your students. Be bold in your pursuit of their hearts and find time daily to hear the Lord's voice. Can I pray for us? God,